One of the biggest challenges faced worldwide today is that corruption has been normalized in our societies, as people engage in them knowingly or unknowingly as a way of getting things done or as a way of accessing services. In the country, corruption has become a gender-based phenomenon, as we have seen sextortion taking place in most sectors and unfortunately becoming a norm. Unemployment has led most women to venture into private sector, and gendered corruption has also become a virus.
I can't mention the name of the company, but I was unfairly dismissed a company because my boss ubethanda ukungenzela ama-favors. So it came to a point yokuthi at one point wabembiza in his office ethi ufuna mina nayo to have an affair for mina ukuthi ngikwanise ngibe ne-salary increment. I didn't agree to ama-terms akhe. So it came to a point yokuthi one day nje wangifinela another small mistake wabe ngixotsha emsebenzini ngathi umsebenzi uphelile. Life was so difficult then. Ngaqalisa into zokuthengisa. The little money that I had ngahamba ngayawoda. Then from then ngithe ngizama ukuthi ngidlulisele i-case yami phambili ukuthi maybe ngingakwanisa ukuncedisa since I was unfairly dismissed. I met this officer naye futhi wathi my case is so difficult. So for me ukuthi i-case yami idlulele, they can help me. I-case yami idlulele phambili. They transferred me to another legal service engangincedisa ama-lawyers angangincedisa ukuthi ngincediswe. I met this other lawyer esithi uzongisiza with my case, but unfortunately angazi ukuthi, to myself I thought ukuthi ngumnyama because everywhere that I will go ngihlangana nabantu besilisa, and at the end of the day they propose love to me. Then ma ukuthi ngalile indaba zami vele azindaba. Ngadecide ukuthi since i-business yami singathi sihamba si-progressa kancane ngigcina abantu abami-supporting my kids, I joined this club ukuthi sidlale ama-stock fair. Although bekuyinto engavumelekile, but I had to find a way to live and survive nabantu abantu. Kufika isikhathi sokuthi siyabe sireyidwa amapholisa. Ngesikhathi sifihla utshwala, ngesikhathi siyathathelwa, ngesikhathi siyabotshwa. So there is this guy, police officer naye futhi asesithi, no my sister, wena uyazi i-industry, this is just as good as ABCD. Wena ukuthi into zakho ziukhambile kahle singakurate and stuff, wena kumele udle lathi amapholisa udlale nathi. Ngikho into zakho zizohamba kahle, we won't rate you, asingeke size sikuhluphe. Mina nawe we just have our secret affair. Nami ngizabe ngikukhulumela kwabakhulu futhi ukuthi kungarate. And engiphethe ama-rates, ama-rates wonke vela afikela, in most cases afikele esandleni sami. So ngimnikeza ama-phone numbers zami ngithi since he's a police officer maybe kuzongisiza, not knowing ukuthi umuntu lo has his own target futhi nakhona. It was very unfortunate in this country there's no fairness. Ukuthi abantu besimama, we have to pay with our bodies to get a living. We have to pay sincenge ukuphila kahle ngokuthi sithandane nomuntu oyabe ungafuni ukuthi ube ku-relationship naye.
Mina ngiyathengisa amabheli njalo futhi ngusiphatheleni, ngiyatshintsha imali. So into lezi zokudlwangulwa kwabafazi kuvamile kakhulu ngoba nje mina kwelinye ilanga ngathi ngithengisile ngathi ngcono ngitshintsha imali yami ngabanjwa amapholisa. Ipholisa lithe limbambile lahamba limbamba isandla esithi siye epolisi. Sesiphambili wabe eqasa ukungikhweba isandla, engikhweba wabe ngikhanyela bese nika inamba yakho so that uzanjani ngingakubophi. so ngabe sengimnika inamba yami because ngangela choice. Ngingayekela ukumnika wayahamba engivalele, so ngabe ngimnika inamba yami eqeda ukungiyekela khona la wahle wangifonela wangi-epha okutshengisela ukuthi vele la nxa ngabe ngingamphanga ngabe ngabotshwa. So sometimes ukuthi uyagcina uyenza into ongafuni ukuyenza ngenxa yokuthi uyakuzama ukuthi impilo yakho uphile lawo.
This corruption has even taken place in government and public services institutions more than in any other sectors in the country. Women in the public service sectors spoke of how this corruption, which has been happening for years, is still going on.
Like uchida kutsvaga mabasa, uchida kupinda kana kuti public service, kune corruption akawanda anoitika between munhu anenge achitsvaga basa anenge ari kutotamburawo pamwe ane qualifications akakwana, but kuti urione basa racho pamabhosi kwaunenge wasvika kunzvimbo yaunenge wasvika iyoyo anogona kuti ndinokuda kana uri munhu wechidzimai. Mostly munhu wechidzimai ane dambudziko rekuti awane basa nekuda kwekuti vamwe varume vanogona kumuchiva asvika ipapo. Kana ari munhu akanasi kunakanaka anogona kutomutanga wati tanga wandida kana kuti tanga warara neni kana kuti tanga waita neni zvisiri kuti uwane basa. So ndo dambudziko riripo, corruption iripo muno muZimbabwe. Plus futi kuriwana basa racho unogona kutorishayiwa nekuda kwekuti unenge wamuramba munhu iwewe, unenge uine imba yako maybe, kana kuti une murume waunonge uchida muupenyu hwako. Plus kana muri pabasa pane mabhoso anenge achida kutoti maybe kana kuti ndikupromote unofanirwa kunge wandida ndarara nemahara pasina chawawana ipapo kuti ukwanise zviri kuitika. Even kana mujudicial zvinogona kuitika izvozvo, zviri kungozviona zvichiitika but hauzokwanisi kuti utaure.
Kuma-institutions amaningi ayi-government you find that men yibo ababe beziphethe and omama ababe kungukuthi bangenile khonapho babe kungukuthi maybe favoritism kumbe kuyabe kulokuzwanana thile with those who are in charge of ukubafaka ezikhundleni zona lezo. And into ekhona ukuthi like kuma-interviews amaningi it is always advocated ukuthi there should be gender balance, but uzathola ukuthi i-balance yangikhona iba biased kakhulu towards men, ngoba bayabe bekhethiwe. Nxa ngabe kungukuthi abantu bona laba abangomama abangenayo you try to find out about i-qualification ayabelayo, uzathola ukuthi most of them kuyabe kungafiki ukuthi it's a real qualification of which ugcina usifake benefit of doubt ukuthi maybe there is another qualification which is behind it or close to what which has been used.
Like kwamanye ama-ministries maybe like education, nxa ukuthi uyadinga umsebenzi at times loba kulezi nsuku umsebenzi ingatholakali, ukuqhathwa kwangikhona kukhathwa nzima. Uyathola ukuthi kwakhona nxa uhamba uyakwanisa ukuthi ubhadalise imali well before ungakayi ku-interview ukuze uthole leyo post, regardless ukuthi uvula ama-points aphansi okulabanye ababe khona khonapho abalama-points babasengcono kulawo. Uyathola ukuthi nxa okhona ngale bona lawo ama-officials ayiyo abaqhatshayo bethi ukuze uthole lowo msebenzi kufuze uhlangane layo emacansini. Lokhu kuba yingozi kakhulu ebantwaneni because bagcina sebethatha imikhuhlane ngoba umntwana yabe sedesperate efuna umsebenzi uyagcina sesebenza lapho lapho.
The arts sector has seen most female artists speaking out of the adversities they went through as they went up the ladder. Gendered corruption is not new in the arts industry and seems to be far from gone.
Corruption does affect the arts, and I'd like to believe that because the arts is a male-dominated industry, a lot of the power, a lot of the opportunities lies with the men. So it's not every man who's altruistic. Not every man is out there because he wants the best talent. Some men specifically place themselves in those positions of power and influence in the arts to make sure that they are sort of the gatekeepers. Not necessarily the gatekeepers in the sense of, oh, you have to do things my way, but the gatekeepers in the sense of, if you don't pay a little something to me, then you cannot proceed with your art. And I believe, especially with the fact that with other professions, maybe you can start working when you're 25 because it takes that long to study and to get whatever necessary papers you need for that. But in the arts, you have people as young as 14, people as young as 16, people are talented from primary school. And so that just grows the vulnerability of the artists. You have children, you have young women, people who aren't yet confident, and sometimes people who are fully dependent on the arts as a source of income. So all of these vulnerable groups, coupled with these people who place themselves in positions of power, and some of them don't even have power, but they have the semblance of power, and they'll tell you that, no, for you to get this, you have to give me this sexual favors. And sometimes they're not even the gatekeepers for that particular opportunity or project. So I'd like to believe it is there. We always have reports every other year that, oh, this organization, the director was doing this, that organization, the director was doing that. And I'd like to believe that no one really does anything about the gendered corruption. The same people who are accused of asking for sexual favors in order to give people opportunities or give them a slot will still be operational after 20 years.
In the end, the forms of corruption affecting women and men are closely related to their roles and responsibilities as prescribed by society. In an interview with Amakosiga's Media, professionals from organizations such as Transparency International, who have been hands-on advocating ending gendered corruption, spoke of the nature of corruption on the ground in Zimbabwe.
At a policy level, yes, corruption is an aspect, it is there. That's why we're having Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission. That's why we're having the police anti-corruption unit. Even the Zimbabwe Republic police themselves, they are there as a policy enforcing agent. But specifically on gendered corruption, I do believe that there's still a lag. While there are ministries that are supposed to be interlocking, for example, the Ministry of Women, they're supposed to be having Ministry of Women issues being factored into other policies. But it's also good to have a sound policy that is addressing gendered corruption. But beyond gendered corruption, we need a national anti-corruption strategy which informs different government players, because when you speak of government, mind you, there are various departments, there are various ministries. So it can't be an effort of one particular ministry. It should be a holistic approach. If corruption is happening within the Ministry of Home Affairs, how about the Ministry of Health? So this should be a one source kind of thing. All ministries need to pull together in order to harmonize, in order to educate policy implementers, in order to educate the citizenry themselves. In terms of whistleblowing, this is a global call. There is a global work around the need to protect people that whistleblower. We've seen in many other countries they have whistleblower protection acts. But however, in Zimbabwe, we're still at a phase where we are trying to come up with a whistleblower protection act. So for now, we don't have it. But yes, Zach is talking of a mobile whistleblower. However, this has to be supported at policy level. It has to be succinct. It has to come out strongly as a policy issue, such that even the police themselves, even those that are within the judiciary, know that a person who witnesses, a person who reports corruption, has got a right to be protected.
to the different forms of corruption that men, women, boys, and girls experience, really linked to their roles and responsibilities as defined by the society. For starters, corruption in general exposes the different groups of women to various forms of abuse, ranging from sexual abuse, ranging from exposure to paying and being asked for bribes, and then it also deprives them of services that they should ordinarily be accessing. There are policies that address corruption broadly, starting with our own constitution, which speaks to issues of good governance, and good governance relates to issues of making sure that there are systems in place to make sure that services are easily accessible to the citizens. And then we also have the same constitution also speaks to establishment of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, and the commission already has the Anti-Corruption Act, which also addresses the various forms of corruption. And then we also have the criminal laws that speaks to the criminal bit of forms of corruption, which include theft, fraud, and others. Those are also provided for in the Criminal Law and Reform Codification Act.
When we evaluate the impact of gender corruption on women on private and public and grassroots level and so forth, you get to see that women are, we're not saying that men are not affected by corruption, no, like everyone is affected by corruption, but we're simply saying that somehow women are more affected by corruption more than men because of their general role in society, because you get to see that women are, well, they are the mothers, they are the gatekeepers, they are the ones who take care of family, they are the ones who run errands and so forth. So as a result, they are the ones who are usually exposed to the public sector and usually expect results from the public service delivery, whether maybe you are enrolling your children at school. Not that we are saying men don't do that, they do, but most of the time it's women who do that whilst men go to work and so forth. Like maybe enrolling your children at school, taking your children to the hospital, buying goods and so forth. It's usually women who do those kind of things. So at the end of the day, they are exposed to corruption of public offices and so forth. Even for instance, you can actually maybe look at, naturally women are more dependent on the health system than men, looking at mainly during their reproductive years. You will get pregnant, you want to go to the hospital, you want to give birth and so forth and so forth. So women get to be exposed to all those sectors which are most likely to have them end up being extorted. In terms of policies that speak into gendered corruption in Zimbabwe, we don't really have anything that speaks into gendered corruption. Of course, corruption has been criminalized. It's there in the Criminal Codification Act and so forth. It's there, the forms of corruption and so forth. But it's just general. It doesn't really speak into gendered forms of corruption like sextortion. So they just look at those other forms of corruption, embezzlement, the big old graft things, those other form of corruption, but nothing speaks into sextortion.
As a country, there are no policies addressing gendered corruption, no constitutional binding laws addressing corruption issues. Hence, policies relating to land, loans should be gender sensitive. There is need for effective implementation of policies that make access to services easier. To curb corruption, there is need for public participation, not just as victims, but in terms of policy and decisions.